Thank you. We'll move on to assignment of relocatable classrooms. We have a 2-minute report coming.
Said I'd keep it short. Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Renee Kamen. I'm the manager of school planning. Earlier this week, you received the recommendation from our office for 13 relocatable classrooms. The total request is $2.1 million. We're able to save some money from the placement of relocatables last year, which we are very fortunate enough to place the 13 in the locations that we have. It's a collaborative approach that we do. We use our facilities. We go out, we talk to the principals. We also survey the principals to understand their needs, and we also go out to each person, to each school site that will that have requested, and go through all of the requests and have them ask questions to staff. And with that, I will take any questions.
And we have several, and I'm going to ask that if you can accept your answers at a later date, please let Ms. Kamens know. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Briefly, I know that Bryant Woods is looking to be pretty over capacity next year, given the number of people that accepted the waivers, and they had requested 3. Having been in the space, they are using every available space to include like central pod areas for classroom instruction.
It's right there.
Do you have is there a reason they were only allotted 1 when they requested 3 and also requested last year and didn't receive any?
Yes, so I went out to speak to the principal on multiple occasions. We specifically spoke about the projections. They are going to actually have a net loss of 50 students approximately for next year. And we talked about staffing and everything that goes on in the school. One of the criteria that we actually have to look on is whether or not the site can actually hold a relocatable. There has been recent legislation in which I believe County Council adopted the international standards or the national standards. Mr. Lubley can correct me if I'm wrong. That requires a 30-foot from the building and 30-foot between the relocatables in order to site them. So we, meaning my office staff, as well as one of our project managers, went out to each site to measure to see. Some instances we want to place more relocatables on a site, but we physically cannot because of site constraints, meaning building setbacks from just the property line, available space, topography, if there's steep slopes, the ability of building ramps to and from, because that is actually a requirement. We have to ramp and have 2 accesses. We also felt that based on the projection that we're seeing, that there wouldn't necessarily be a need to place all 3 relocatables out there on the site, but 1 would be adequate to pull some of the teachers of records that are teaching in the pods to coordinate the space, and so that the principal could regain an interior classroom space, because right now she has, I believe, she reclaimed the technology room last year. And so with all of that information is why we were recommending 1 relocatable at the site. But saying that, if the board feels that they would like to reallocate a portable, they can absolutely do so. That has been done in the past. The recommendation would be we would keep it within the 13 that we're recommending, because it's about $160,000 per relocatable to site.
So I'd like to recommend to my colleagues, I know we're not voting on it today, I'd like to recommend that we reallocate 1 of the other portables to Bryant Woods. And I don't know what you would recommend as the next one to reallocate.
Sure. We actually had a very extensive conversation in our office today, knowing that this might come up. And what we would recommend is that if you take 1 away, it would be most feasible to take it away from Hammond Elementary School. We do anticipate that the Hammond Elementary School will be over capacity next year, but in talking with the principal, we think there is a good plan to, if they get increased staffing, reorganizing the building and such, to be able to handle it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for your recommendation. We do have 4 people who have signed up, so let's be brief. The recommendation is something we'll take into consideration when we come back to vote on this. Ms. Delmont Small, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. So can we please get a list? You gave us the program notes on page 4.
Yes.
If we could get by school for each regional program, the number of students anticipated and the number of rooms that are being utilized at each location, I think that would be helpful.
Can I clarify, you want the number of students for the regional program?
Yes.
Okay.
Like, for example, for Atholton Elementary, we have pre-K there, preschool in Mink. So if we can see what
You want the number of room and
the number of rooms and the number of students.
Sure.
The other question I have is that on Phelps Luck Elementary School on page 2, it says that we're installing 2 relocatables, but the text below says it's replacement relocatable classrooms. So,
That's incorrect. We're placing 2 brand-new relocatables
okay, so
underneath that.
installation 2, so it should just be relocatables.
Yeah, we're just placing.
Okay,
Apologize,
and then
I'll
what about
update
Burley
that
Manor
next
Middle
time.
School?
Burley Manor?
Yep,
Yep.
so it's not a
No,
replacement?
It's not a
Burley.
replacement. Sorry about that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Is there a reason why for Thomas Viaduct Middle School, we don't have any justification for the additional relocatable like we do for the other schools?
No, it's just that that particular school is going to be, when it was redistricted, it's a growing school naturally, and when it was redistricted, it added on to that capacity. So next year, it's just, we anticipate it to be over capacity.
Okay, and for Clarksville Elementary, the recommendation is based on due to lack of pull-out space in classroom sizing. Is that something that's occurring right now, or is this something anticipated? to be a
It's something anticipated. We recently placed a regional program there that took away, I believe, 2 or 3 classroom spaces interior to the building. It's one of our oldest model schools. There are really no places for small pull-out rooms. And currently, they are using a capacity-sized room for a special education purpose locally. And because of that, we felt that with the incoming students and based on the things that we know, it would be best to place 2 classrooms, 2 relocatable classrooms at Clarksville in order for them to utilize the school the best way possible.
Okay, and we knew about this placement of the regional program before redistricting?
Yes.
Okay. I had sent an email regarding a request for the schools that were redistricted, for each school that the projected number of students being redistricted in and out, the projected number of students being redistricted with and without exemptions, and the projected capacity utilization with and without exemptions. So
Yes,
that's something you can address?
yeah,
Okay.
we're working on it.
Okay.
We'll get that to you as soon as possible. The final reports, though, from redistricting are online, but those reports do not include the exemptions for those that took the exemptions at the elementary and middle school, and any IEP or 504s that were recently requested.
Okay, if we could get that all on my favorite thing, which is
Yeah.
an Excel spreadsheet, that would be lovely.
We'll
Thank
put
you
it all
very much.
together because it's in multiple different places.
Okay. And regarding the challenges that we're going to have moving forward, it seems, with the change of the law regarding the fire code.
Yes, ma'am.
So it says in here that it is not known if replacement in kind requires the same rules to be followed. When are we anticipating an answer on that?
Good evening, Dan Lubley, Acting Director of Capital Planning and Construction. That is an item that we need to take up with the code officials. Basically, the change, it's not a change in the law, it's actually a modification of NFPA 101. That's the National Fire Protection Association 101 code. The Howard County has adopted that, and in 2018 version, they're requiring basically sprinklering of all educational spaces. There are then exceptions for relocatable classrooms. All of those exceptions have to be made or met, and that includes that they have to be separated from any other facility by 30 feet. Currently, in the past, our relocatables were not separated. So the question really comes into our colleagues over at the county. if a replacement in kind constitutes a new facility, which would have to follow up with that 30 feet or not. So it's just a question that we have to pose to them and get that answer back to them. Hopefully, we can have that answer shortly.
So, Ms. Delmont Small,
Thank
if you have any additional
I
questions.
do, and I'll do them offline.
Thank you so much. Ms. Caternio, are you ready?
Just want to echo my colleague, Ms. Mallow's sentiments regarding Bryant Woods. As you may recall, I pushed for this last year, and I was just there again today, and it is clear the school needs relief. Every single space is used. And so one of the questions I had was about Thomas Viaduct and the two relocatables. Because it's a new school, have you taken that into consideration, comparing it to like Hammond Elementary, which is much older, much smaller hallways? Because Thomas Viaduct just seems like it could handle.
Yes, actually, I spoke with the principal. I've been to that school multiple
I
times.
have no doubt they need
yeah.
portables.
And,
And looking at the growth coming,
and
I have no doubt.
She's pretty crafty at doubling up on the rooms. In other words, looking at the room space, looking at her scheduling. A lot of the principals are doing that nowadays, which is why we've been able to hold off relocatable requests in many years. Many of the principals that had requested relocatables in the beginning with the staffing change have amended their requests. So over time, there is going to need to be more thought into Thomas Viaduct, which is why right now we're recommending 2. But she's pretty good at using her space wisely, co-sharing spaces, and we're looking at other options in interior of the building as to what we can do to capture.
And I know this is way outside the box, but there's a community center being built right across the street from Thomas Viaduct. Has there been any thought to?
Why
I know.
Why don't
I'll
you have
ask
that
offline,
discussion
but
offline?
Yeah.
Offline.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting shut down.
Dr.
Okay,
Wu?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a very few simple questions.
Yes.
So if I look at the capacity with the portables, right, what's a reasonable capacity depend from OSP? From like, for example, if I look at number from 74% to 110%, what's a reasonable capacity?
When we look at the elementary school level particularly, we look to try and make sure that the capacity is about 100% with our recommendations. Sometimes it's a lot lower, and the reason it's a lot lower is because you have some schools that have more staffing requirements than other schools. For example, teachers of record that actually go and teach almost all the day long need a space. And so that's why you might see some schools that have very low capacity and others that have very high capacity. That I'm saying that there are some schools that were just recently redistricted this year. We're not really recommending much demolition of relocatables, primarily because we really want to see how the projections fall out from the what's going to happen with parent choice and movement between boundaries. So we're trying to be very conservative with our recommendations. So there are still some schools out there that have relocatables that probably aren't being used.
Okay.
And so we just didn't want to be too quick on our decision, and we wanted to see what was
Okay.
going on.
So, Dr. Wu,
Yeah,
as you
I got
asked your
that.
question,
Yes.
the ones that might be of consideration for the other board members, that would be more important to try to get through this evening. So if you
Okay.
have specific issues that you
Yeah.
want to talk to.
Because I want to understand that, right? So then second question I will just go over, because I thought maybe you can move some portables from one school to another when there's no need. But since you're waiting to see the situation evolves, I think that's very wise. I really appreciate that. So another question, what happens when the exemption expires in a few years? There's a lot of exemptions, right? So that changes the capacity of a school. Does that mean we need some portable maybe not needed in a few years?
It's possible. Exemptions are built into our projection. They're called out of district in our projection, and so when they expire, then that expiration date that will go out of our projection, and then the student will go to the next school. So many of the 1-year exemptions, when they expire after the next year, they'll be out of that, and so you'll probably see the utilization go down.
Yes. So my question for that, if in case that happens, I hope you can move some portables
Yes.
which are not used instead of purchase new, right?
Yes.
So then move some portables.
We actually look into the facility rating. We work with our facilities department. They let us know which ones can move and which ones can't move. So that's actually part of the beginning of the process.
So that had been considered already, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your, Ms. Coombs, you did punch in.
Two quick questions. The cost of removing, not demolishing, the cost of transferring a relocatable.
I believe it's not much less than a new relocatable.
Okay.
Because you still have to take it apart, move it
Right.
across, do your footings, re-establish the old, make it the way it was before. So there's not much cost savings
Okay.
from moving.
Stevens Forest, there's a possible removal as far as the principal request. Why aren't we taking advantage of that and moving that one to someplace?
I don't believe any of those are movable.
So that would have to be
Those
demolished?
would be demolition, I believe. I can double check
Could you
on the
please?
status, yeah.
Okay, because it would be nice if we could potentially utilize that someplace else. Thank you.